Welcome back to another episode of What's Your Opinion? Today's video was suggested by a subscriber to cover the 2014 shooting of Michael Brown by Missouri Police Officer Darren Wilson. We're going to go over the evidence that we know. We're going to listen to eyewitness testimony and some people who don't know what the meaning of the word eyewitness is, and people's credibility overall. Was there racial tension? Was this racially motivated? We're going to go over that and more. And at the end of this, I want to know, what's your opinion?
Five years ago on Friday, one single event changed the landscape of Ferguson, social media, and racial equality. Tonight, a look back at the day-by-day events that unfolded after Michael Brown was shot and killed. No one could have predicted how the deadly shooting of Michael Brown would rip open deep racial wounds and lead to violence.
Now, the shooting happened just after 12 o'clock here on Canfield Drive.
It all started when white Ferguson police officer Darren Wilson confronted African-American teenager Michael Brown. Brown was walking near Canfield Apartments. There was a struggle and then gunfire. Michael Brown, who was unarmed, was dead, killed by a police officer. Angry crowds gathered as Brown's body lay in the street for more than 4 hours.
He put his hands in the air.
Ferguson police claim shots fired nearby and the crowd prevented them from moving Brown's body.
They killed this boy for no reason, and there should be justice about this.
St. Louis County Police stepped in. The next day, Chief John Belmar told the public Officer Darren Wilson shot Michael Brown in self-defense.
Within the police car, there was a struggle over the officer's weapon.
Late Sunday evening, massive looting hit Ferguson. Cell phone videos showed the lawless chaos along West Florissant. Windows smashed at Quick Trip, people grabbing what they could, then later setting it on fire. Looters broke into about 20 businesses that night. This was Zizer Tire on Delwood. One person enters, then hordes of people take what they want. The same thing happening at Hibbett Sporting Goods store. Police responded with riot gear and tanks, a move police called necessary, but would be criticized nationally.
Am I the only one that noticed that the news reporter kept saying the black teenager and the white officer? You see, my problem with things like that is when you start putting race into it. The officer's race, he's white. Brown's race, he's black. You're in an underhanded way painting a narrative for your audience. You're giving the innuendo just by making those statements that this was a racially motivated incident. And even today, I still don't believe that. I don't. I think it's bad choices and it's bad attitudes, and it led to bad consequences. Let's see if I'm right or if I'm wrong. Let's continue.
The next day, Monday, August 11th, Michael Brown's family held a press conference.
We need to know everything.
Tuesday, August 12th, more looting. Reverend Al Sharpton arrives in St. Louis. During our 9 p.m. newscast, we watched live as police used tear gas on protesters. The unrest following Brown's shooting was the first time we saw the impact of social media. Cell phone video of the protest streamed live across the nation. Police and Ferguson officials received death threats.
They're asking for violence against me, my family.
The next night, more tear gas, more arrests. Ferguson cancels the start of school. The Justice Department opens a federal civil rights investigation. By Thursday, Governor Nixon put the Highway Patrol in charge. Captain Dorian Johnson now marched with protesters. On Friday, police released surveillance video from inside the Ferguson market showing the moments before Officer Wilson shot Brown. It shows what police say is Brown pushing a clerk and stealing cigarillos.
One of the first things that I've taken notice to is in a situation as tragic as this, and as well as with George Floyd, Trayvon Martin. Why is it that the Black community decides to start tearing down their own neighborhood, destroying their own neighborhood? You're not sending a message to anybody. You're destroying your home. And then you got people looting in the stores. What does that have to do with Michael Brown, George Floyd, or any kind of equality? You're making an effort just to steal because that's what you want to do. And a lot of times those people get looped in with the protesters as they are one group. They are not one group. You have protesters on one hand that's standing for a positive cause, and you got looters who are just opportunists that use the protesters as a shield to do the crimes that they were going to commit anyway. It just continues no matter what. Let's continue with this story.
To protect the people and property of Ferguson today,
Governor Jay Nixon issues a state of emergency and imposes a curfew. On August 25th, hundreds gathered for Michael Brown's funeral.
Every video clip, photographs, physical evidence, all of that will be presented to the grand jury.
As the community waited for the grand jury's decision, Brown's family asked for calm. On November 24th, a St. Louis County grand jury decided not to indict Officer Wilson for shooting and killing Brown.
They determined that no probable cause exists to file any charge against Officer Wilson.
Protesters, furious with the decision, gathered outside of the Ferguson Police Department. Outrage from the shooting reached a new level.
And this is a live picture from the ground of that police car that is on fire.
As police cars were vandalized and set on fire, more stores were looted. The scene from Sky Fox showed a landscape engulfed in flames.
These yellow things are the fire hoses, and this is one of the areas where shots were fired and firemen evacuated.
Firefighters were powerless and could do nothing. Protests would stretch into Clayton and the city of St. Louis. But in the days and weeks to come, many would march in peaceful protest. In March, the Justice Department decided not to charge Officer Wilson with Brown's death. But the investigation did find the Ferguson Police Department had a pattern of racial bias and unreasonable force against African American suspects. The report led to municipal court reform that unfairly preyed on poor African Americans, and it changed the way police departments operate and train officers.
Ferguson would go on to elect 2 Black City Council members. One, Wesley Bell, would then go on to become the St. Louis County prosecutor.
There is an increased level of hypocrisy in the Black community. And what I mean by that is, as you can see, after the decision came, they again looting. So I'm not a mathematician, but that just don't add up to me. A young man was killed by the police that you feel is unjust. So how does that equate to you breaking into businesses, setting cars on fire, and stealing? One has nothing to do with the other. And I'm glad they actually decided to separate these people away from the peaceful protesters who are doing it the right way, to instill change the right way, non-violently. You know what? I would tell you this: we need more of that, and a lot less of the violence, a lot less of the senseless looting and stealing. These are straight up criminals, and that's how I see them, and that's how I'm going to call them. Let's get back to the rest of this.
Peaceful protest there, and then it turned violent overnight. People out, of course, to commemorate the 1-year anniversary of Michael Brown's death.
And Robin, really disturbing scenes again in that city. One teenager in critical condition this morning after he opened fire on police.
ABC's Candace Gibson is there in Ferguson for us this morning and starts us off. Good morning, Candace.
Robin, good morning. And what a wild scene overnight, starting with a gun battle involving 2 groups. Up to 60 shots fired in less than 45 seconds, ending back there where you see the police officers. One man gunned down. Overnight, the gunshots erupted, marking the anniversary of the shooting death of 18-year-old Michael Brown. Tense moments of chaos and confusion, ending with a Black teenager, Tyrone Harris, shot by police after they say he opened fire on them. Tony Rice, an eyewitness, posting this video to Twitter of what appears to be Harris on the ground with an officer standing above him. The gunshots first heard in this parking lot around 11:15 last night between what police say were two rival groups who were not part of the protest.
Remember, I spoke about hypocrisy. There was two rival gangs shooting out at each other during all of this. A year later. Why don't I hear nobody protesting about that violence? About the black on black violence? Why don't I hear anybody talking about that? You get a white officer who happened to have been the shooter that shot and killed Michael Brown. Never mind what actually happened. All you can focus on is black and white. Black and white. He was a white cop that shot a black guy. It doesn't matter. Facts don't matter to you. But my question is this. How often do you have the white cop shooting and killing a black man? Or how many times do you have black on black crime where they're shooting and killing each other? Why you ain't up in arms over that? Why you ain't up in arms about the dude that's selling drugs and selling weed throughout your neighborhood? Causing crime. I don't hear anybody saying anything about that. That's cool though, right? The police are the bad guy. Not the guy selling drugs. Not the guy doing the shootings in your neighborhood. You got to get real. This hypocrisy has got to stop. You have to be able to call a spade a spade. What's right is right and what's wrong is wrong. Doesn't matter what your color is.
Ferguson's police chief speaking with the media nearby when the shots begin. Within seconds, everyone running for cover. Police say that Harris fled the scene and opened fire on a police SUV containing 4 detectives. The detectives then left their vehicle, and according to authorities, Harris continued shooting at them with his stolen 9mm semi-automatic weapon. All 4 detectives firing back. This morning, authorities pleading for peace.
Listen, there are a lot of emotions, I get it, but this is something different. And we can't sustain this as a community as we move forward. We have other individuals out there who are armed right now. They're part of this group. We need the public's help. We can't do it by ourselves. We have to have the community out here helping us, working with us to identify this and to make this stop.
St. Louis police telling us this morning they made 4 arrests overnight and 3 officers suffered minor injuries. Today, the protesters say, is a day of civil disobedience here in Ferguson.
So coming up next now, we're going to hear from Officer Darren Wilson, his account of the situation, and then we're going to hear from Dorian Johnson and his lawyer. And, well, you know what? I don't even want to spoil it for you. Have a look for yourself.
Yeah, actually, it was just a normal day, and I was just patrolling my area.
Alone?
Alone, yes. We're always alone in Ferguson. Always one-man cars. I was actually on my way to go get lunch.
And you're driving to lunch, and what do you see?
I see 2 individuals who I later became to know as Dorian Johnson and Michael Brown.
You didn't know then?
No, I did not. I saw them walking in the middle of the street, single file, on the double yellow line. I had stopped in front of them and let them walk up towards me.
But you're still in the car?
Yes, I never even put the car in park. I didn't drive. And as they walked up, I had asked Dorian Johnson, who was the first one, to walk on the sidewalk. And his reply was, well, we're almost to our destination. And I was like, okay, well, what's wrong with the sidewalk? And then as he passed, he just kept walking, ignoring that. Is when Michael Brown came next, and he had exchanged some explicit words with me. He had said, what you have to say.
First words to you?
Yes. And when I looked at him, as law enforcement, we're always trained to look at people's hands. The hands are what will hurt you. And I noticed that his right hand was full of cigarillos. And it kind of all clicked then. The call I'd heard, I was in the vicinity of where they were going. Cigarillos were in his hand. Dorian Johnson was wearing a black shirt. And that's when it hit me that these were the suspects from that stealing.
He was aggressive in his manner.
Yes.
You say cigarillos in his hand. Did you have any sense that he might be armed?
I did not know. I had no idea. Got on the radio and I asked for assistance.
What happens next?
I backed up because they kept walking, ignored everything I had said.
You're still in the car?
I'm still in the car. I then put the car in reverse and I backed up just past them and kind of blocked the street and them off. And
so you're kind of in the middle of the street like
yeah,
this?
it was like the street's this way, my car was angled that way. It kind of blocked them from escaping, and it just kind of provided a little security for everybody. And I had gone to open the door and get out of the car. And when I did so, as I was opening the door, I said, "Hey, come here for a minute." And that's when he turned and said, "What the are you going to do about it?" and slammed my door shut on me.
Slam the door shut?
Yes.
So you're trying to get out, he slams the door shut?
Yes.
And?
Again, taken aback because I've never been trapped in my car, I used my door to try and push him back and yell at him to get back. And again, he just pushed the door shut and just stares at me.
So you're staring each other down?
Yeah, he stared at me and he's like almost over top of me. It looked like he was trying to intimidate me. And as I looked back at him, all of a sudden, punches start flying.
He threw the first punch?
Yes. He threw the first one and hit me in the left side of my face.
Because, you know, some of the witnesses have said that they saw you trying to pull him into the car.
That would be against every training ever taught to any law enforcement officer.
Didn't happen?
No, it did not.
He punched you, and did he land a punch?
Yes, he did. The first one that he hit me in this side of the face, right in this area. And then I don't know what or how many hit me after that. I just know there was a barrage of swinging and grabbing and pulling for about 10 seconds.
What's running through your head?
What provoked such an aggressive response to really nothing out of the ordinary besides a conversation? My goal when I originally tried to get out of the car was to get out and just talk with him for 30 seconds till backup arrived. And then we could investigate the stealing further. I had reached out my window of my right hand to grab onto his forearm because I was going to try and move him back and get out of the car to where I'm no longer trapped. And when I felt it, I just felt the immense power that he had. I mean, the way I've described it is it was like a 5-year-old holding on to Hulk Hogan. That's just how big this man was.
Hulk Hogan?
He was very large, very powerful man.
You're a pretty big guy.
Yeah, I'm above average. I'm about 210, 215, but you know, from what I've heard, he was around 290. And then as I'm holding him, I see him coming back around with his left hand, and it's in the shape like this, and it comes in through the window and just a solid punch to the right side of my face. I mean, the next thing was, how do I survive? Because I didn't know.
How do you survive?
Yes, I didn't know if I'd be able to withstand another hit like that. I mean, you hear all the time, one punch and someone gets knocked out, and if I'm knocked out, then what happens to me? Because then I can't defend myself at all. So that was my fear, is if he hits me again, will I be conscious after that hit to still defend myself?
So that's what you're thinking at that moment, I can't get hit again.
Yes.
And what do you do?
I actually went through my progression of how do I get out of this? What do I do? What's my force that I'm allowed to do? And my training just overrode everything you could ever think. I mean, training just kicked in.
What did your training do at that moment?
At first, I went to mace. But if I would have used that, it would have not only disabled him if it got to him through both our sets of hands, but it would have disabled me.
So you go through the checklist, the mental checklist, you rule out mace.
Yes.
This is all happening in a split second.
Yes. And the only option I left was my firearm. So I withdrew my firearm and I
Where's your gun at that point?
I keep it on my right hip. Mm-hmm. I take it out and I come up, I point it at him.
So you're no longer holding on to his arm with your
No,
right
my
hand.
left hand is now blocking my face, and I'm now getting my firearm with my right.
Okay, so show us exactly what you did.
I was like this, and I brought my gun up like that. And when I said, get back or I'm going to shoot you. And then his response, immediately, he grabbed the top of my gun. And when he grabbed it, he said, "You're too much of a shoot me." And when he did that, he had twisted it and put it down into my hip, and I had the barrel dug into the crease of in my left hip. And while he's doing that, I can feel his hand trying to come over my hand and get inside the trigger guard and try and shoot me with my own gun. And at that point, I envisioned a bullet going into my leg. I thought that was the next thing.
Both your hands are on the gun at that point?
Yes. This hand's trying to just get it back, and my right hand was on like the pistol.
And his hand's over yours?
Yes, it was over top.
What do you do?
I had managed to wiggle, only a couple inches. I just slide over just slightly, and the force of him pushing down actually slid off the side of my leg. And when it slid off, it's now pointed down the floorboard. Well, I didn't have enough strength to pull the gun up, and with just one hand, I couldn't maneuver it. So I took my left elbow and locked it into the back of my seat, and I just pushed as hard as I could like this with both my arms. And I ended up getting it to slide up my leg towards my knee, and when it got to, fully outreached, I noticed it was lined up with the silhouette of his body. And that's when I pulled the trigger for the first time.
What happened?
It didn't go off. The gun was actually being jammed by his hand on top of the firearm. I believe his finger was blocking the hammer from striking the slide. So I tried again, and again another click. And this time I'm like, this has to work, otherwise I'm going to be dead. He's going to get this gun away from me. Something's going to happen, and I'm going to be dead. So I pull a third time, and it finally goes off. It went into the door. And when it went into the door, my window had been rolled down. So the glass from the window then exploded out from the door. And when it exploded, I just remember seeing a big chunk of glass come over my hand, and I see blood on my hand. And I didn't know what it was from originally. You know, later I found out it was actually his blood because I wasn't cut. But after the glass flies over, I look at him, and he kind of backs up about 6 inches to a foot. And it kind of startled both of us.
That was the first time you'd ever used your gun, right?
Yes, it was.
What were you thinking?
We were both in shock. That's all I mean, it was shocking having to pull it, but it was also at the same time, it was shocking that this was the only option I had. After I look at him, he's kind of shocked. He gets even angrier. His aggression, his face, the intensity just increases. And he comes back in at me again. And when he comes back in, I just block my face again, and I put my gun up and try to shoot. Well, it doesn't shoot that time either. Now it's jammed again. Again, training just kicked in. I never even thought about this. Just your gun jams, your racket, you get a new round in there. And when I did that, I wasn't looking at him. I was just like racket, expecting another hit, and I put my gun up and fired. And after I fired that shot, I look over. He's running.
It went off that time.
It did go off that time. He starts to run, and I see the dust cloud behind him, and I'm like, okay, I missed. That was the round didn't hit him. Then I go to exit my car. And when I'm getting out, I use my walkie, and I say, shots fired, send more cars. And I start chasing after Michael Brown.
You sent that radio message, shots fired, send no cars, but nobody got it.
No.
How come?
Found out later my radio during all the altercation, which was down on the side, which is where my portable radio's kept, the channel was changed from 1 to 3.
That moment before the second shot, you guys are staring at each other, and you said there was a look in his eye like something you'd never seen before.
Mm-hmm.
You described it as a demon.
Mm-hmm. It was a very, very intense image he was presenting. I was so shocked by the whole interaction because this was escalated so quickly from a simple request to now a fight for survival. And it still doesn't make sense to me why someone would act in that way and be so mad instantly, so aggressive instantly.
And he then does run away.
Yes, he does.
How far does he go?
I don't know, I mean, around 30, 40 feet.
At that moment, you've called for help.
Yes.
Why not stay in the car? He's running away.
My job isn't to just sit and wait. You know, I have to see where this guy goes. My goal wasn't to arrest him. My goal was to maintain visual on him. And I was worried.
You mean you weren't going to arrest him alone?
Not alone, no. I knew I had backup on the way.
And then he stops?
He does stop. When he stopped, he was going to get on the ground, but he didn't. When he stopped, he turned and faced me. And the stutter step that you sometimes see, like when people start to run and they kind of did the hop and then go, he does that. And as he does that, his right hand immediately goes into his waistband. And his left hand is a fist at his side. And he starts charging me.
What did you think when you saw that?
I didn't know. I mean, my initial thought was, is there a weapon in there? Is there a knife? Is there a brick? What's in there? Why is your hand going there? We're taught to let me see your hands.
As you know, some of the eyewitnesses have said when at that moment when he turned around and put his hands up.
That would be incorrect. Incorrect.
No way?
No way.
So you say he starts to run, does a stutter step, starts to come towards you, and?
At that time, I gave myself another mental check. Can I shoot this guy? Legally, can I? And the question I answered myself was, I have to. If I don't, he will kill me if he gets to me. He's already overpowered me once. If he gets to me, I will not survive.
Even though he's, 35, 40 feet away?
Once he's come in that direction, if he hasn't stopped yet, when's he going to stop?
So you've already fired twice. He starts to come towards you.
After he's coming at me and I decide to shoot, I fired a series of shots and paused.
What did you see?
I noticed at least one of them hit him. I don't know where, but I saw his body kind of just flinch a little. And after that, I paused and I again yelled, stop, get on the ground, giving him the opportunity to stop. And he ignored all the commands and he just kept running. And so after he kept running again, I shot another series of shots. And at least one of those hit him because I saw the flinch. And he stopped. I stopped and I said, get on the ground, get on the ground. Well, this time he's about 15 feet away. So I start backpedaling because he's just getting too close and he's still not stopping after, from what
you were backpedaling?
Yes, away from him. Because I was like, he's already running through these shots. I mean, they weren't phasing him. It didn't matter to him. And he was looking through me. And as he gets to that 15 feet after I fired the second round of shots, he gets to about 8 to 10 feet. And as he does that, he kind of starts to lean forward like he's going to tackle me. And 8 to 10 feet is close. I mean, if he's going to tackle me, he's going to tackle me at that point. And I looked down my barrel of my gun and I fired, and what I saw was his head, and that's where it went.
Some witnesses have also said that they actually saw you stand over him and shoot in the top of his head.
That would be incorrect.
And he's down now.
Yes.
You know he's dead?
Yes, whenever I had actually seen that bullet go into his head, and I actually saw that, and I saw the face that he had go blank. Everything was just blank. And when he landed, he had fell face first and actually slid on his face and upper body. And as he did that, his feet had come up in the air from all the momentum he had from running at me. And then when it came to rest, his feet then collapsed. And I knew immediately that he had passed.
And when you look back, is there anything you could have done differently that would have prevented that killing from taking place?
No.
Nothing?
No. If he would have gotten on the sidewalk and followed Dorian Johnson to the sidewalk, I probably never would have noticed cigarillos. I would have gone and gotten lunch and continued my day. He would have continued his.
Some of the witnesses have said they thought you were out of control, that somehow you had snapped.
That would be incorrect. There was never, the only emotion I'd ever felt was fear, and then it was survival and training.
And you're absolutely convinced, when you look through your heart and your mind, that if Michael Brown were white, this would have gone down in exactly the same way?
Yes.
No question?
No question.
The Brown family came out with a statement last night where they said, "We are profoundly disappointed that the killer of our child will not face the consequences of his actions." What do you think when you hear that?
I think those are grieving parents who are mourning the loss of their son. I don't think there's anything they could say, but again, I'm sorry that their son lost his life. It wasn't the intention of that day. It's what occurred that day. And there's nothing you can say that's going to make a parent feel better.
It sounds like you don't think you were responsible.
I did my job that day.
Do you feel any remorse?
Everyone feels remorse when a life's lost. Like I told you before, I never wanted to take anybody's life. That's not the good part of the job. That's the bad part of the job. So yes, there is remorse.
I guess really the only final question I have is, what's the most important thing that people need to believe about Darren Wilson?
I just did my job. I did what I was paid to do, and that was my job. I followed my training. The training took over. The training led me to what happened. I maintained the integrity of this investigation. That's it.
Now, for the main event, listen to this.
On this program, your client was interviewed on this very program.
Yes.
And did not mention anything about a robbery, nothing about a QT, nothing at all. All he mentioned was a confrontation with police on Canfield Drive.
That is correct, because that had nothing to do with the incident that occurred. The officer did not know that they had robbed that plate, not robbed, I'm sorry, let me take that back. The officer did not know that they had gone into that store and taken some of those cigarillos. He just did not know.
This isn't one of the dumbest lawyers I've ever seen in my entire life. You literally went in front of the news media and admitted that they robbed the store, and then you tried to let me take it back as if we didn't just hear that or see the video for that matter. And then you say the same thing in different words. Now they didn't rob the store. Now they took the cigarillos. Let's continue.
But isn't there a certain deception and omission? Isn't that lying through omission by now? If someone asked you about what happened leading up to this incident, and you don't tell them, the interviewer on this program?
Not at all. Lying is when you say something. Lying is when you say something that's not true. Nobody asked him, what did you all do before you all came in contact with the officer? If you had asked him, we would have told you. But we had the duty to tell that to the FBI, and they got the full story. The authorities have the full story, and they got it 3 days before, 2 or 3 days before all of this came out.
Was there any sort of deal made that your client would not be prosecuted or not be charged because they're saying we got the information today that he would not be charged? Was there a deal made?
No, when we had the meeting with the FBI, they told us, they said, listen, We just want you to know that everything that you're getting ready to tell us, we generally already know the answers to. We've got all the information that we need to know. We just want to ask you your story. So the FBI, as well as the other authorities, knew about this incident at the time we were
But my
interviewing.
question was there a deal, any sort of immunity, anything like that?
At that time, they said, based on what we know, you are not charged with any crime. You have not done anything wrong.
So now we all get the divine pleasure of hearing from Dorian, because you have to hear this to believe it. This guy can't even lie straight. Let's get this over with, please.
Why haven't you talked to anybody?
No one's contacted me. No one's said, hey, we're looking for you. We want you. You're the prime suspect, or nothing like that. And I understand it's been a lot on their hands, but in a situation like this, you want to get that under quickly.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
The county police never called you.
They haven't contacted me personally, no.
They said that they called lots of times and left messages for you, but you have not received any of those messages. They've not.
I've received messages that they've contacted and wanted to set up and talk to me. They haven't contacted me personally, no. But when we tried to reach out to them, at the time, it was a lot going on, and the chief, he just couldn't find the time to do it at the moment.
Now that's bullshit.
And so that was at the county. You would never talk to Ferguson police?
No, I do not wish to speak to Ferguson. But when we tried to reach out to them, at the time, it was a lot going on, and the chief, he just couldn't find the time to do it at the moment at all.
And this is now escalated. There is a higher agency now. Why do you want to talk to them?
It's not so much as want to talk to them as much as trying to see if they really can make a change, or they really can come down here and hear my situation and understand and feel what we were going through and do something about it.
The officer did not know that they had robbed that plate. Not robbed, I'm sorry, let me take that back.
Dorian, what should happen to that police officer who shot Mike?
I believe he should be tried exactly as anybody else would be in this situation. Anybody else would be locked up in a holding cell waiting to see a judge. I believe justice should be served, and if he's found, whatever the charge may be, he definitely should pay for what he did.
What do you think the charge should be?
I definitely think he's guilty of murder, and I definitely think he should pay.
Is there anything else I haven't asked you that is important for you to say?
The only thing that I do want to add is to the youth and to the young people that are doing the looting and do the rioting, just to tell them, let's stop. Let's just stop. And if instead of all of them running down the street, breaking glass and running in stores, I want them to think about how it would look if over 500 teens run down the street with trash bags, picking up trash and wiping windows, and see that feeling and that reaction in the community. And I challenge them to do that.
So which is it? You were not contacted, or you were? Oh, that's right. You kind of told on yourself with that one. So they did want to set up a meeting, and then the chief of police in this high profile case just couldn't find the time to do it. And then you backtrack. Now you want to talk to the FBI, but you don't want to talk to the FBI, but you want some change. Here's some advice. If you want some change, then be that change. Not be part of the problem. Don't act like we didn't just see the surveillance of you with Michael Brown when you were stealing the cigarillos. You act like we didn't see that. You are part of the problem. You are not credible, nor is your lawyer. I guess a paycheck's a paycheck. And then you got the nerve to give a message to the youth about looting and rioting. We saw you stealing, so are you the best person to be giving advice about what the youth of America should do? And by the way, I like your little teardrops there. That's a nice touch. Anyway, I think it's clear, in my opinion, where the BS is coming from here and everything. Do everybody have all the answers? No. But based on what we saw, you can kind of paint a pretty good picture of what happened. For them to portray this guy as if he's some kind of innocent victim, he's some upstanding citizen, it's a joke. Call it what it is. And this, for me, has nothing to do with anybody's race or anything. This is a problem where they're trying to use race as a shield to divert your attention away from the actual criminal behavior that he was engaged in with Michael Brown. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next episode of What's Your Opinion?